servant of God. And I would just endorse all that has been said so far. But to highlight that as a member of the legal profession, Sir Daniel was very supportive and encouraging of young lawyers. He had this very humble way about him, even though he was a senior lawyer. So that while I was a young and maybe hot and sweaty lawyer and the deputy registrar of the court, you know, you come out and you think you know everything. So Daniel was one of those senior lawyers who would come very quietly and humbly at the registry and correct and school me in the most, well, it's only after he got up and left I realized I was being schooled. Because I probably would have been holding up one of his probate applications or something, and he would come very humbly and nicely and have me take out my probate text, Tristram and quotes, and show me exactly where I am wrong and that I should proceed with his application. And so we developed a very good rapport. When I decided to enter into private practice, he again came and had some very encouraging words to say to me, and of course offered that I could reach out to him at any time I needed in private practice. He explained that private practice is a tough field, but having interacted with me at the registry, he knew I could manage. And what a lot of people didn't mention today is that Sir Daniel was an author as well. He, in every sphere of life, he contributed intellectually by writing. And when I became a lawyer in private practice, he brought this little book, giving me the little pep talk and encouraging me, and he gave me this little book, God Speaks. That was one of the books he wrote. And in that book contains anecdotes and stories to show the reader how in everyday life, with the things and people around them, nature and inspiring people and so, the Lord speaks to you through all the wonderful things he's created. And so as a community man and as a Christian, he wrote these books. He also, when he was minister as a public servant of the people, he wrote again a synoptic view of the public service of Grenada in 1999, prescription for a model Grenada in 2000, government and the global village in 2007. He never stopped writing. So that was based on his experience as a minister of government. And of course, he held various ministerial portfolios actually in the short time that he was in the lower house and a member of the cabinet, including acting at times as the Attorney General and at least at one occasion as acting Prime Minister. So Sir Daniel saw it all and served in all these capacities. When he became Governor General, he wrote a booklet on the office and duties of the Governor General. And then as a lawyer, he wrote a little book for the layman, always thinking of people, the Layman's Law Book. This was in 2002. And also an index of the laws of Grenada from 1959 to 1979. A compendium of the laws of Grenada in 1985, and this one is published internationally. by the University of Virginia. So Daniel, I almost say Dr. Williams, so Daniel wrote and contributed to the jurisprudence and to the intellectual space in which he operated. And I can tell you, when he became Governor General of Grenada, it was indeed a blessing for those of us in the Bar Association. I remember us, at the time I was on the executive of the Bar Association, and we always struggled when we had activities to find locations to host the activities. Well, from the time Sir Daniel became GG, his place became our place. And as far as he was concerned, the Governor General's residence was the people's residence. So he hosted us there on many occasions. And after Ivan, when the Governor General's residence became his private residence at St. David's, almost every activity the Bar Association needed to host, Sir Daniel's place was the location. And so his family actually became an extension, beyond Dawn and Daniela, became an extension of the Grenada Bar Association. And for me, as a young lawyer who didn't have much partying days, part of my enjoyment in attending these occasions was to sometimes sit on the sideline and watch Sir Daniel and Lady Williams take it away. They were quite a sight to behold as dancing partners. And so we remember fondly this great statesman, this son of the soil, this man who left his mark in every sphere that he served, whether it's church, community, public service, or the legal profession. And we say thank you to the Williams family for loaning Sir Daniel to us, and may his soul rest in eternal peace with his God that he so diligently served. Thank you, Madam President.
I thank you. Thank you very much, Senator. Senator, the Honorable Gloria Thomas. I think I saw Senator Thomas's light first. I could rotate. Are you all right there? Senator Horsford, waiting a minute? Thank you. Thank you, sir. Proceed, Senator Thomas.
Thank you, Madam President, Mr. Speaker. Today we gather here to reflect on the life and times of Sir Daniel Williams, former Governor General of Grenada. Let me take this opportunity to extend my heartfelt condolences to Lady Gloria, Dawn, and the rest of the family. We know it is a difficult moment, not only for the family, but his close associate, and we trust that God will give the comfort that is necessary at this time. So Daniel served as Governor General from 1996 to 2008, but contributed to this country's development as a Member of Parliament and a lawyer. His contributions are well documented and serve as a source of inspiration for all of us, as well as generations to come. Despite being of a quiet disposition, he was able to make positive impression on those whom he interacted and worked with. Sir Danny has a long and distinguished career of service to Grenada. He was a philanthropist, and that is the way I best know him. I got to know him in this way through the Lions Club, working to improve the lives of the less fortunate here in Grenada. He made his contribution and allowed the use of his residence for the annual Lions Pullman dinner. And the Pullman dinner was $100. And this was since in the late 90s to the early 200s. So $100 30 years ago, you could well imagine that was a real sizable fundraising activity. And so, as we continue to reflect on his service and his life, I think it is an inspiration for all of us. We don't have to make a lot of noise to get things done. And we could be humble and still achieve a lot. Today also we pause to pay respect to Honorable Clarence Rapier and Honorable Allen Maguire, who served this country and sat in these hollow walls, making decisions in the interest of our country. May their legacy be remembered and serve as an inspiration to us all as we continue to serve. May they all find perfect rest as their soul continue to rest in peace. Amen.
Thank you, Senator Gloria Thomas. And I offer the floor to Senator the Honorable Dwight Horsford. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Madam President, Mr. Speaker. Mindful of certain respectful and mournful activities later today, I see many of my colleagues going in that direction. I will be very brief, but I am moved to speak and to join in the chorus of commendation for the life of a faithful and distinguished son of the soil. I believe, Madam President, Mr. Speaker, it was the Greeks who long recognized as true that what echoes in time is what men do in this life that change the course of history. And though today we reflect on Sadani's life and contribution to this nation, what I'm about to say is something of my own observation and reflection, and that what we do today is hardly enough. Sadani belongs to a generation of special Grenadians that changed the course of history. Earlier on, distinguished speakers, I believe it was the leader of the opposition, Prime Minister and others, mentioned his quiet and humble contribution and participation in the restoration of democratic rule to a traumatized and broken nation. But that contribution is more profound than that, in that we are here today and a different generation of leaders are here today in a parliament and in these proceedings precisely because of the contribution of men like Sadani and others. I say so, Madam President, Mr. Speaker, because this generation of special Grenadians are not going to be with us for very long yet. It is the natural order of things that Papa God will call them home, and as we have been seeing, they are going home. and not enough is written about their contribution. We celebrate 50 years of independence, and much of our preoccupation and reflection are about two tumultuous events and periods of our nation's life: independence, revolution, and the collapse thereof. Not much, discernibly not much, is said, spoken, and written about those who rose to the occasion and the time to pick the country up and put it back together, some of whom are in this parliament today, not necessarily as members, but in the gallery as witnesses. And so, as we reflect on Sir Danny and his life, I say these things so that our memory and our reflections must come full circle to a broader view of his contribution and those of his ilk. And I too join with my colleagues and a grateful and mournful nation to thank him and his family for his service, his contribution to our nation, and the very benefits of our parliamentary and democratic experience that we now enjoy. And so those were the few words I wish to add, Madam President, Mr. Speaker, on this solemn occasion, because I thought it important that things are put in perspective, in my humble view, regarding such great men as Sir Danny. And perhaps now too is the occasion for us to honor those of that generation who are still with us for their contributions in a meaningful way. So thank you, Madam President, Mr. Speaker, for affording me this opportunity to say these things.
Thank you, Senator Horsford, for your maiden address, at least to the joint houses, and we will have your maiden Senate statement. I offer the floor to Senator Honorable Seville Francis. You have the floor, Madam.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Madam President. This afternoon, Mr. Speaker, members of this honorable House, family, friends, well-wishers of the former Governor General, Sir Danny Williams. Allow me to associate myself with the sentiments of those expressed before as we gather here today to eulogize and celebrate the life of Sir Danny Williams. So to the family, I offer my condolences and also to thank you on his behalf for the contributions that he has made to this great nation. I know I am probably the youngest here, and you're wondering, what do you know about Sir Danny Williams? But my fondest memories, and I think I've shared that before in this honorable House, my mother carried me to almost every state function, literally dragged me when I probably did not want to go. But as I look back and I remember attending those events, one of the things that stood out to me is the grace that Sir Danny Williams exuded as he carried out his functions at state events. That calm, graceful demeanor that he displayed is something that I hope to embody and emulate as I carry out my functions in this role, serving this great nation. One of the resonated words that for me in this house this morning was legacy. And we speak of his legacy, but one of the things is his foundation, the one that speaks to helping the less fortunate, needy people, children who he wished they had a better life at attaining education. And so that is something that is forever going to remain with me, simply because myself, as a young lady in this society, recently launched a foundation that seeks to help the less fortunate, especially when it comes to attaining their education. And so for me, I may not be able to match the character of the man who we celebrate today, but I hope to walk in these shoes or follow in his footsteps to create that impact that is so needed here in this great nation. And his giving spirit or character was one of the things mentioned here this morning. And I can also attest to that being part of an organization, Friends of the Mentally Ill, and I always hear the names Lady Williams, Sir Danny Williams, as one of the main sponsors for the events that we hold. And also on behalf of the Friends of the Mentally Ill, allow me to place on record my condolences and thank you so much for the contributions that you've made for persons affected by mental challenges in this great nation. And just a couple days ago, I laid my grandmother to rest. And I recall on my journey back to Grenada, this scripture, 1 Corinthians 15, 55 to 57, played on my mind as the tears bathed me from her home to the airport back to Grenada. And this morning, Lady Williams and the rest of the family, I want to share that with you, because I too look forward one day to see, O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? The sting of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. But thanks to God, which giveth us victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you kindly. I offer the floor to His Excellency, to Senator Salih Rahman. Senator Rahman.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to begin by mentioning, and I have learned a lot about Sir Danny Williams in this discourse today, in this sharing of information on the life of a great Grenadian. And to say that as I reflect, we don't honor our elders in the way that we ought to. A lot of time is spent on the airwaves, on trivial things, some of them politics, some of them important, a lot of them not. And we don't see enough storytellers telling the stories that we have heard today. I have been fortunate to meet Sir Danny Williams as a customer of mine, and as a young man growing up, observing him in his various roles. And the thing that stood out to me about him was his character. You can learn a lot about a man by the way he speaks and by the way he carries himself. So a lot has been said about him and the way he lived his life. And I'm sure that that has had an effect and will have a continued effect on his family and his grandchildren and those who knew him. But looking forward, in the Islamic tradition, we are taught that when a man dies, that three things continue. His good deeds come to an end when he dies, but three things continue to bring good deeds on his account. One is called Sadaqatul Jariyah, which is charity, unending charity. So if someone were to plant a tree and somebody were to eat from the fruits of that tree, the person who planted the tree would continually get reward. So in this way, the tree that Sir Daniel planted is his contribution to our democracy. For many, many years, through his politics and through his leadership as Governor General. And so it strengthened our democracy, and we heard about it after times of difficulty in our nation. And that tree is still bearing fruit. And so that is partly to his account. Second is knowledge that he would have imparted, that the people act upon after his death. And clearly we have heard today from our Attorney General and others, knowledge that he had imparted to other youngsters, and they have continued to benefit from it today. And third, our children who he leaves behind, family who he leaves behind, who will pray for him and ask God Almighty to continually bless him for what he has provided for them. And so, as I listened, that teaching came to mind, and I wanted to share it because it is not always about the past. We can make our future by how we live today. And it's a lesson for me, and it is a lesson for all of us as leaders, how we conduct ourselves in private and in public, so that we too can have a lasting legacy. I offer sincere condolences to you, Lady Williams, and your family, and God's continuous blessings. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Amen.
I thank you, Senator Rahman, and I offer the floor to you, Senator Roderick Sinclair. Have the floor, Senator.
Thank you, Madam President, and of course I recognize the Speaker and of course other members of the both houses, of course the audience inside and outside. But most of all, Madam President, for the purpose which we are here today, pertaining to the motion recognizing Sir Danny Williams as a noble statesman who has contributed, and recognizing his efforts, I would say, on earth. I want to associate myself also with the motion as was presented in this house, in the houses. Of course, as the voice of the farmers and the fisher folks in the Senate, I want to speak here in their voices, of course, with some intonations of my own perspectives. Firstly, to the family, Lady Williams, the children, grandchildren, of course, the extended family, not only biologically, but based on what I've heard, all those he would have touched, the different groups and so on that would have benefited and would continue to benefit from his generosity. I would have shaken his hand on many occasions in many functions I would have been at, and the issue of humbleness, calmness, serenity, if that's appropriate word, is very important. And of course, maybe we wonder why he was so calm. You know, when you hear the history and the context of how we get into this extra public life of politics and governance, it was always in times of some turmoil, and the best recipe for dealing in those cases is to keep calm, you know, and it's something that I would say personally will take us through in the time of storm and rough times. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, members, of course, it's my understanding and my knowledge that Sir Williams, of course, is a man deeply rooted with the soil, the earth, his agricultural estates. Of course, I know I've had discussions with his daughter some months ago that she want to get the farm back up and running and so on. So I want to recognize and urge her and the rest of the family that that part of the legacy is in your hands, and we look forward for great outcomes from those. But as I was reflecting, Madam President, to be here this morning, last night I pondered, what do I say? How do I speak? What should I be saying? And three things came to my thoughts. Of course, we're hearing a lot of three things today, 3-3. But I guess as parliamentarians / politicians, we know today is not a day to be speaking lengthy, so we're keeping it simple. And the message and the purpose for which we're here came to my mind. We are coming here with a special sitting to recognize and to pay homage to a great statesman. But the question arises, well, why? Why are we doing this? What is the purpose? What we hope to achieve at the end of the day? And I battled my way coming here this morning, trying to get some clarity. And whilst I came up with some broad context, when I listened to many of the presentations, they came down to three things. And there's one additional quote I want to finish this presentation with. One, to me, to be recognized in such contexts as we are doing today, you have to be deeply rooted in God. It starts there, the Maker. Without God, without connection with the Maker, for whom get you here, for whom give you the energy, the strength, the inspirations, you can get no way further. And so when I listen, that came out very clearly. Not only in Sadani's attendance to service, he wrote, God speaks. I was shocked. So I was actually on point with that. The other thing that came out, Madam President, as the second point, and the second point, in that order, is the issue of serving your country. Outside of God, there is no greater thing that could happen to anyone to serve your country, whether it's military, sports, politics, to serve your country, is that you are representing your country to the world, like the Kirani James and all the others great ones. Whether you are successful or not, that's a different discussion. The first issue is to serve. And to serve, well, you, and I think I could borrow it, Senator, Member Andy, you have to have your belly to serve. You have to, it's not easy to stand up in front of people, to the whole world, the whole country is behind you. You have to have the confidence. But as my good friend Senator Rahman mentioned, you have to have knowledge. As Member Lennox Andrew said on the other side, merit. You have to have capacity. So it is not just about I want to represent my country. I want to do this. But you have to be prepared. And so we heard Member MP Peter David, speaking about him going to school in the UK to prepare himself. Because if he was not prepared, he would not have been able to reach those heights. And so, being a statesman, and we sit here to honor, is that we have to be prepared in all ways to excel, such that in whatever we do, we can able to leave footprints in the sand or indelible marks or however we want to refer to them. And I say this, Madam President, these 2 points, and I'll get to the third one shortly, is not only for us, what we represent here, but there are many others, hundreds of thousands, locally and overseas, in other countries too, who would want to aspire and be great leaders, philosophers, persons who they leave legacies behind, persons who would want to create their own mark and leave marks behind. And so there are models, there are ways to do this. And maybe the family would have to write this book, How to Be Great. The examples. Because being great, it don't happen by chance. It involves many things, some of which we heard here today. But what we do know is that God is always in the middle of this. Starts there. You have to have capacity and competence. You have to have the urge and the will to want to do. But you also have to be a wise man. And we heard all the wise things. He spoke to Dr. Mitchell. He said, don't go there. Don't leave it alone. The wiseness is very important. But in all of this, Madam President, you could have God, you could have all the capacity. But if you have a dysfunctional family, a non-supportive family, and all of those things, and friends, and not only direct, immediate family and friends and your network, if it doesn't exist, 1 and 2 is in trouble. And so we have to understand, and we have to be supportive wherever we are to this Lady Williams and the family for giving up, it was rightly said, Sadani to the nation. And maybe in his passing, you may say, well, you are going through a sad moment. But at the same time, they had to be struggling a lot in maybe having times with him. You have to attend to this, different issues, and so on. They had to be tolerant at the same time. They had to be supportive. You have to explain certain things to them that they have to. And so it is not an easy road. Maybe you may say, well, we don't have to worry about that anymore. But you do have to worry about that more. Because as a family, you'll be called upon, trust me, to sort of explain how you did it. How did he do it? Some documentary to create that model of a statesman, a woman. This is what I'm seeing ahead of us. The life of a family, of a politician, is not a simple thing. Especially the competitive politics. Things have been said, you may say, well, no, well, they have it wrong. Well, they could be saying that because you know better. And you wouldn't pick up the radio, they go in the radio and cuss and debate. You have to take calmness. And I say this to say not only to your family, but all of us, family and friends. We have to be supportive because this is what we call the enabling environment. The enabling environment. So you can have a good tomato plant growing nice with all the tomatoes. But if the enabling environment, the weeds and the irrigation and the greenhouse is not around, which is the family, that tomato may not get to the plate. And so, whilst God is important, and whilst all those other things we get into competency is important, the family. But what keeps the family together is also very important. It comes back to our belief in the faith, belief in that this person can do it, that push. The cheers that we give when you see our athletes running and jumping or getting the ball and they say, yeah, go for it. The cheerleaders. And so I ask you, the family, at the same time, to find new persons to cheer for. There are many other persons who are looking for support. We are not asking you to adopt everybody, but there are others that in your own way that you can help and share and keep the legacy. Whilst I don't want to say, may his soul rest in peace, I would say that his life will continue. His readings, his writings, all of those things. The Bible was written many years ago and is still alive. How many of us have written a book? Written something that someone can read 40 years from now, 70 years from now. The wise people do this thing because they know that someday those will be helpful. And so I want to just read finally. I don't like reading and referencing things, but I like to have my own reference. But I thought this might be helpful in the context of all that was discussed by one William James. I don't know who this person is, but it's on the internet. And you Google everything. It says, the greatest use of life, the use of life, just understand the use of life, what we do, is to spend it. So it's a currency, yeah? To spend it on something that will outlast it. And with these last words, I want to extend to you the greatest sympathy, the greatest support. Be strong, very strong. I've lost my wife about a month ago, so I understand your loss right now. Okay? Thank you.
I thank you, Senator Sinclair. And I offer the floor for her maiden statement Senator the Honorable Mariana Charles. Dr. Charles?
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, I stand to support the motion to celebrate the life of His Excellency, Sir Daniel Williams. I extend my deepest condolences to Lady Williams, the children, grandchildren, relatives, and friends of Sir Daniel Williams. Though I may not know Sir Daniel Williams personally, from the sentiments shared here today, it is evident that his unwavering service and significant contribution to our nation have left an indelible mark on our hearts and in our history. We are profoundly grateful for his selfless service and a legacy which will continue to inspire us all, myself included. So again, thank you, and may his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you, Madam President.
Well, we thank you, Senator Charles, for your words and at this late hour for your considerable brevity. Thank you. Thank you, Senator. I offer the floor to Senator Quince Britton. Senator Britton, you have the floor, sir.
Afternoon, Madam President, Mr. Speaker. I too join to stand here to associate myself with the sentiments expressed in the motion presented or read by Honorable Prime Minister. Madam President, I beg your indulgence to express our profound and sincerest condolences to the family on behalf of the government and people of Grenada, and particularly the people of St. Mark. We say our deepest condolences to you. Though I too didn't have any personal encounter with Sir Danny, but with the many sentiments that has been expressed here today, without a shadow of a doubt, Sir Danny has left an indelible mark in the many lives of our citizens of Grenada, Carriacou, and pt2 Martinique through his exemplary services at various levels. To you, I say thank you for lending him us to serve us as an esteemed gentleman. Though he's gone, he would never be forgotten. And may the many wonderful memories that he shared bring comfort to every soul that grieves. May his soul rest in perfect peace.
I thank the Honorable Senator Prince Britton, and I believe this summarizes or concludes the statements. May I take leave to offer very brief remarks? Gloria, Lady Williams, please permit me to add my voice in saluting your dearly departed husband, beloved Sir Daniel Williams, a statesman who worked in the public square. Among his many books, the one entitled The Layman's Law Book contributes immensely to the wellspring of the legal knowledge of our civil society and our nation, indeed Grenada as a whole. His life is a reflection of the many formidable undertakings of service, and his life does reflect his heartfelt commitment to Grenada. Gloria, Lady Williams, on behalf of my mother, who was a strong friend of the family, and on my own behalf, and clearly on behalf of this Senate, I too express sincere condolences to you, your family, and relatives on the sad passing of Grenada's attorney, Grenada's former Minister of Government, and Grenada's former Governor General of the years 1996 to 2008. As this distinguished House has acknowledged throughout the morning here in your gracious presence, Madam, your departed spouse was a distinguished son of the soil, and his life was one of formidable undertakings, anchored in community. If I were to summarize it, I would say that his work fits within the complex intersection of law, family and community life, and national politics, all of which contributed to Grenada's national development. Sir Daniel Williams provided wise leadership and courageous action, calm as it was already said, wise as it was already said, and deliberate, and as has already been said, very relevant in every era, in every time that he served. And thus, in a long and fruitful life, this intersection undertook many forms: Children's Foundation, commitment to church, law firm, successful daughters and family, a published author, an entrepreneur, a farmer, a partner, and of course a parent. We as a people are indeed indebted to this eminently humane and qualified gentleman. The Honorable Prime Minister of Grenada, Deacon Mitchell, said that Sir Daniel Williams planted a tree under which many others could find shade. And when I heard that summary, I thought, and the tributes that followed, I thought this is indeed what the man was all about. In that complex of being a human being, being a parent, being a public official, he was planting, he was opening up spaces for others. And if you didn't want to, you did not have to interact. But it has struck me how interesting it is, how meaningful it has been that persons from different generations, different political persuasions, different fields of interaction have all been able to find shade under the tree of Sir Daniel Williams. And thus he lived. He lived because he served. He served God, family, and country. And he served as a way, indeed, as his way to live. I thank you, and I ask God's continued blessing on the family and mercy on his soul.
Honourable members, I too must join my voice with the sentiments expressed before. Having listened to everything that was said, it's clear in my mind that Sir Danny did a lot more than we realize as individuals. When you add the sum total of the contributions today, you get a better sense of who the gentleman really was. I don't know what his childhood dream was, but to serve as GG, as Governor General, it's the highest office that anyone can serve. So as simple and as humble as he was, he managed to attain the highest office of the state. That is really commendable. And if there is a reason to be hopeful and cheerful, is that Sir Danny rose, I'm not sure which part of St. David's, but rose from wherever he was born to sit in the highest office. I didn't know much of the gentleman. Many years ago, he called me when I worked at the Ministry of Education, and said to me that he wanted to open, he called it a resource center, somewhere not far from Honorable Prime Minister, St. David's Pharmacy, somewhere along this road, this line there. He showed me an area that he wanted to open a resource center. And I went with him, I looked at the place, because he talked about computers and books and the like. So I accompanied the gentleman. And I asked myself then, I wonder why is he into this? You know, is there more that you can do for yourself? But he seemed to be focused on something. I almost could have heard him thinking. Then I stepped back and said to myself, Sadani feel that he must do more for the people he knew. And so that resource center, without even asking him, came to me as a way of providing an opportunity for the lesser among him to be able to access education and resources to change their own situation. So the sum total of everything that was said today comes forcefully to mind that the way Sadani lived his life, there must be a place up there for him. Thank you. After
Who is?
Honorable Prime Minister.
Schools.
Madam President, Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank all of the members who have expressed their sentiments in supporting the motion and who have personally expressed their condolences, sympathy, and their tributes to Sir Daniel and Sir Daniel's family. It's not often that we get the honor of paying tribute to someone who has held the highest office in the land, simply because of the rare distinction that such offices bring. It is also not commonplace for persons to hold such offices. If I'm not mistaken, Sir Daniel's passing signifies that we do not in fact have any former Governor Generals who are now alive. And so, as my learned friend Mr. Osford indicated, such men and the era that Sir Daniel represented perhaps has come to an end. And so it is now up to us to continue in the high standards of the service to the public that he has set. And so being given the opportunity to pay tribute to him in this motion simply represents an opportunity for all of us to be reminded, as difficult as it is and as much belly as you need, it is service over self that leads to gratification and that personifies the purpose for the existence of human beings. So I commend all of the members at this joint sitting for joining in paying tribute to Sir Daniel. And I thank you, Madam President and Mr. Speaker, the clerk and the members, the support staff at Parliament for giving us the opportunity to do so. And lastly, for Sir Daniel's family, friends, well-wishers and supporters for taking time off from your busy schedule and spending the better part of almost 3 hours with us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Prime Minister, for your closing remarks. And now, honorable members of the House of Representatives, the question proposed is, now therefore be it resolved that this special joint sitting of the Houses of Parliament held at Mount Weldale, St. George, this 15th day of October 2024, hereby recognize the substantial contribution made by His Excellency Sir Daniel Williams as a resolute Governor General and an exemplar of erudite principles respected and acknowledged throughout Grenada, regionally and extra-regionally, and be it further resolved that the special joint sitting of the Houses of Parliament of Grenada express profound sympathy to the family, relatives, and friends of His Excellency Sir Daniel Williams, and honor him for his humbled and distinguished service to the state of Grenada. All those who are in favor, say aye. Aye. Those who oppose, say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Honorable members of the Senate, the question proposed is, now therefore be it resolved that this special joint sitting of the Houses of Parliament at Mount Weldale, St. George's, this 15th day of October 2024, hereby recognize the substantial contributions that have been made by His Excellency Sir Daniel Williams as a resolute Governor General and as an exemplar of erudite principles respected and acknowledged throughout Grenada, regionally and extra-regionally. And be it further resolved that, honorable members, the special joint sitting of the Houses of Parliament of Grenada express profound thanks and sympathy to the family, to the relatives, and the friends of Sir Daniel.
Take the call. All those in favor?
Yes. And therefore, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. And those opposed, say nay. Of course, the ayes have it. I think the ayes have it. And we move for other matters. I join with others in indicating that I will submit into the record a statement concerning the former Senator Alan Maguire, who is also passed. His statement will be in the record. Thank you.
Did I have government business?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that these honorable houses be adjourned sine die.
MP for St. Mark. Second motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support the motion as presented by the Leader of Government Business.
For this, Senator Andrew David.
Madam President, I beg to associate the Senate with the sentiments of the motion as moved by the Leader of Government Business. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. For the opposition in the Senate, Senator Dwight Horsford.
Madam President, I second the motion as accepted by the Leader of Government's Business.
Honorable members of the House of Representatives, the motion is that the House of Representatives be adjourned, signed aye. All those in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Again, we thank distinguished family members of Sir Danny for being with us this morning. All members of the Senate, in support of the motion that the Senate be adjourned, sign it aye. Say aye. And those who are opposed, say nay. The ayes have it.
Honorable members of the House of Representatives, this
No.
Honorable members from the House of Representatives, this honorable House now stands adjourned, sign it aye.
Honorable Senators, these houses stand adjourned, sign it aye.
Sorry. Mr. Speaker, Madam President, I beg your indulgence.
Go ahead, Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you, and might I be so presumptuous as to ask, Madam Speaker, Madam President, Mr. Speaker, whether I would be permitted to invite the family of the late Sir Williams to dine with us for lunch.
So be it, Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you.
We don't need a motion for that.
So, Honorable House now stands adjourned.